Hello, and welcome back to Knit Your Stress Away, a very, very short but sweet episode today about one of my favorite tools that we use in knitting that you may are underestimating. So let's dive into today's very short but sweet episode. Welcome to Knit Your Stress Away, the podcast for overwhelmed moms who are done with doom scrolling and ready for something slower. Hi, I am Nadine. I am a mom, a knitting coach for beginners, and proud screen time dropout who believes that peace starts with just one stitch. If you've ever craved a quiet moment to yourself, this show is your cozy permission slip. Let's trade notifications for needles and turn stress into self-care together. All right, welcome back to another episode of Knit Your Stress Away. And today we are going to talk about a very tiny tool that has saved my sanity more times than I can count, the stitch marker. Yes. And in the beginning, honestly, I did not buy any stitch markers. I was like, I don't know why I need those. And turns out they're very handy and they're very helpful. So let's talk about how to use stitch markers. What are my favorite ways to use them and what are the must uses for them? Like there's actually things that you must have them for or else you're going to just drive yourself crazy. And ask me how I know. Okay, so what can stitch markers do? So first of all, let's talk about the types of stitch markers there are. You have stitch markers that are just little circles, so they're closed circles, and then they come in all sorts of different sizes and also shapes, some of them very adorable. I'm about to talk about some of my favorites. But the super simple bare bones ones are just mostly plastic or maybe metal little rings, circles in different sizes, so they fit over different size needles. And they can just be placed on the needle and then you have to move them over to your other needle as you're knitting. You also can purchase stitch markers that are open on one side and that have like a little closure. So they're usually made from plastic. And those are very helpful for marking something where you need to leave the marker in a certain place of your knitting without having to move it physically. And it also works really well for crochet, where you may have to move the marker manually, which you wouldn't be able to do with the circle marker. They're not really working for crochet because you only have one hook and there's no moving it over to another one like you would do in knitting. So you would attach your stitch marker, you would open it, attach it to a stitch that is already completed, and then continue your work. And then later when you get to the next round and you're seeing that you repeat or that you made it back to your stitch marker, you would then move it physically to the next row. Okay, so those are the two main different kinds. Now, they can be ranging from super basic to extremely adorable and very, flashy, glamorous, like you name it. They come in all sorts of amazing little designs. So my personal for me, the most times I use stitch markers may actually be something that you are not currently thinking to use them for. It's one of my favorite hacks when you cast on a new project. And that is to make sure that your stitch count is actually correct and not driving you up the wall. Like for anyone who has ever cast on more than, let's say, 30, 40, 50 stitches, or even in the hundreds, which is obviously possible if you're making a blanket, a large scarf, or, it could be a sweater that's knit in the round. Like there are things where you need to cast on quite a few stitches, and it can be really, really annoying to count that much and that far without having either a little break or anything that marks and breaks up the amount of stitches that you're counting. So if you've done that and you're like, yep, been there, done that, had to recount, it is crazy. Like I feel like I have to put headphones on or like earplugs so that no one bothers me while I'm counting. Sometimes it's like, you count and it's like, blah, 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 1, 2, 3. You count in your head and then someone walks up and starts asking you a question and it's like 5, 6, 7, 8. I start counting really loud so that they realize that I'm actually counting and just shut up. Cracks me up every time. But let me tell you how to use stitch markers to make that a little bit easier for you. So when you cast on a new project, you are going to want to have about a handful of stitch markers right next to you as you do that, so you can easily grab them. And then every time you hit 10 stitches on your cast on, you're going to place a stitch marker. And then you count from 1 again. You do not count 11, 12, 13. You're going to count from 1 again. You count 10 again. And then you do that as many times as you need until you get to your desired stitches. If you're getting to 66, you do that 6 times, and then you only have 6 more to count. Then you can easily backtrack and see, okay, how many have I done? And do I have my 6 sets of 10 stitches for 60 plus my 6? It makes your life so much easier, especially if you have to go back and just double check, because all you need to do is count to 10, count to 10, count to 10, and just quickly recap it, which again makes it so much easier to have it broken up like that versus having one gigantic needle full of 66 stitches. Wow, that is a tongue twister. And you have to go back and literally count the entire thing again, and then you mix it up. And yeah, like, I feel like getting older makes counting harder. It's ridiculous. So that's just a little tip from my end. I honestly find that tip alone worth the entire podcast episode that you just listened to. So if you have never done that before, please try it out for your next cast on. You're going to be like, wow, how did I miss this before? But of course, stitch markers are also very handy and very helpful to mark things like pattern repeats or decreases and increases when you are shaping a sweater. So for example, if you're knitting a sweater from the top down, you have to then start increasing on the front of the shoulders and on the back of the shoulders, right? And those have to be marked with stitch markers. If you do not do it, I mean, yes, you don't have to do it, but every pattern that I have made in the past that had those types of decreases and increases, it recommended having the stitch markers right there because it just makes it a lot less stressful when you come around back to that point to know exactly, oh, here it is. I got to increase, knit 1, increase again, or whatever it is, right? So that, to me, it makes it so worth it. It can also help when something needs shaping or when you have, like a certain decrease happening every so many rows. You can mark that so that you can backtrack where the decrease or the increase happened. And it's just very, very helpful. So in crochet, the same thing kind of applies. When you need in crochet, it's really oftentimes when you crochet in the round. I'm actually in the middle of, I still haven't finished it. It's so funny. I'm in the middle of making a little bucket hat that is crocheted. I'm only missing the edge. I don't know why I'm not doing it, but it was so very helpful. The first time around, I kind of skipped over place a stitch marker. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't need that. I'm going to remember where my first stitch is from this row. Turns out the more you go, you continue, and there's increases and decreases in the hat because, of course, it has to get a little bit bigger, then it has to get smaller at the top. I was losing track big time. I had to open the whole thing up again because I was like, I don't know where my beginning of the row is. So then the second time around, I had the little marker in there, and every time I moved up around, I moved it physically to the next round. It can feel a little daunting, like, ooh, now I have to move this thing again. But trust me when I say it's 100% worth it. And it's definitely not something you want to skip. Again, ask me how I know. I'm trying to give you all these tips because I've made a mistake and I don't want you to make them. Okay, so let's talk about some of my favorite stitch markers. For the longest time, I've had these super basic ones from Amazon. And as a matter of fact, they're actually linked up in my cheat sheet, the 3 things you need to start knitting, which you can grab at theknittingmamas.com for free. It's a whole cheat sheet. It comes with a glossary for your knitting lingo, which essentially translates English to knitting and back. So you don't feel stumped when you look at your first pattern because it literally looks like a different language. But those are perfectly fine. And I think they work really well, especially when you're first starting out and you're trying to kind of get your stuff on a budget because you're not 100% sure, am I going to stick with this or not? Or even if you're restarting and you're like, okay, I just need some stitch markers that do the job. If you want some cute ones, I just recently got these really adorable cat clips. So they're shaped like a little cat and they come in 2 different options. So they're made from brass. So really cool actual metal ones, which I actually really enjoy. And So they come as a closed little loop, and then they have the cat ears. And then they come as a little cat shape that is slightly open on one side, which means you can slide it onto a stitch without having to put it over a needle or something, right? So you can just literally take one of your stitches and slide the marker on the yarn and it stays right there, which is super handy. So you can grab those actually also at the link in the show notes. It's just the knittingmamas.com. And then as you're on there, you can scroll down to a little area that says my favorite knitting supplies. Click on that and it'll take you to the links to these super cute cat clips, which I love so, so much. And I actually also was given some really adorable, she has a Twice Sheared Sheep. I don't even remember if I mentioned that. That's where the cat clips are from. Twice Sheared Sheep is a cute little online shop that I have recently partnered with, and I'm just so excited because she has the cutest things in her shop. And she recently sent me stitch markers those are not, you can't open these. They have to slide on the needle. So these are not suitable to use for crochet, but you can use them for knitting, and they just mark your stitch, like your decrease, your increase, things like that. And you can use them for the cast on that I just talked about. And they are so cute. They have a little green stone on one side. So they're just a little silver loop, and they have a little decorative stone on there, and they're adorable and they go so well with my brand. I just loved it when I opened those. So go check those out on their website. I'm going to link it up in the show notes. You can go through my link as well. And yeah, that is it for today's episode. I told you it was super short, but I really, truly hope that little tip with the cast on and with the stitch markers is going to help you so much with the next time you're casting on. So hopefully there's no more getting frustrated with losing your place or second guessing how many rows you've been on, or wherever you are where you need to decrease. Stitch markers are definitely the solution to this. And again, maybe the solution to your cast on that you did not know you needed. I'm linking up my favorites from Twice Sheared Sheep in the show notes so you can go ahead and check them out. And also while you're there, check out the other stuff that she has through my link. My favorite is the little spring flower project bag, which is absolutely adorable. So you can also hang out with me on Instagram because I occasionally show how I'm actually using my stitch markers here, and I'm actually going to showcase them to you as well so that you can see what the little cat ones look like. They're just so cute. All right. And then I hope I'll see you and hear you around next week for the next episode on Knit Your Stress Away. And until then, happy stitching. And remember, one row is enough. It doesn't have to be a whole sweater in one day. All right. Talk to you soon. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on today's episode. I hope you're walking away with a bit more inspiration and a few ideas to make your self-care a priority. If today's chat gave you a little boost, I'd love it if you could leave a 5-star review on iTunes. This helps other moms discover the podcast and start finding more calm and creativity in their day as well. And don't forget to join us over in the Knitting Mamas community on Facebook by going to theknittingmamas.com/group. Thanks again, and remember, you deserve time for yourself to recharge and feel your best.